Alright, so today we're looking at Garde. So let's get this out of the way. It's a great game. It's a satisfying and fulfilling game to complete. You play as Adalia de Volador. Please. A swashbuckling vigilante fighting against the Count Duke. The game is filled with beautiful environments, fun and funny characters, and mostly engaging dodge parry combat. First off, I've had some issues with the controller support for the game. It's there, and when it works, it's great. However, I've run into issues where the game won't detect controllers until I've restarted my PC. I've tried closing out everything except for Steam before launching, including restarting Steam. However, as soon as I do a full restart, it's always worked. The controllers still work for other games and in Steam while this issue is happening in Garde. Looking around for only a little while, I didn't see anyone else experiencing this issue, just something I want people to be aware of. With that out of the way, let's move to the menus and settings. First up, accessibility. Having just come off of critiquing the Baldur's Gate 3 accessibility menus and seeing the lackluster accessibility menu for Starfield, it's nice to see what I would actually view as accessibility options present here. We have an invincibility toggle, simplified guard mechanics, and automatic parries. These are very good and welcome gameplay changes that people that struggle to complete the game can use to enjoy the rest of the game. On top of that, we also have access to more typical options like subtitle text and HUD size, language, and difficulty. These aren't really accessibility additions, just settings I would expect to see in any game that has been moved to an accessibility menu and away from other menus because it felt more appropriate. Gameplay. Again, we got some pretty standard settings here. The game appears to offer both Xbox and PlayStation controller support natively, which seems nice. I feel like a lot of games opt for only Xbox support and leave you to figure it out for the PlayStation controllers. I've never used a PlayStation controller on PC, so I'm a bit ignorant on that experience. Audio. Simple 3 to 4 slider audio settings. I generally prefer more fine-tuning, but the 3 separate sliders for different sounds work fine here. The game audio seems generally well balanced by default, and unlike other games that can have busier worlds that exist around your character, this game is more of a linear experience with dialogue, as far as I'm aware, always being directed at your character. Video. The settings here are good. This isn't a strong spot for me personally, so take what I say here with a grain of salt. The settings here don't seem to be missing anything I would want to change. I can set the frame rate cap up to 144, and get to turn off the motion blur. Past that, there are a bunch of settings you can use to fine-tune your experience. However, for me, I've been getting a stable 120 at Ultra across the board. Input, really good. It's rare that I see a game that has built-in support for controller rebinding, yet here we are. I don't see a need to rebind the controls, though I could see a world where I want to rebind parry and attack, so dodge and parry on opposite sides of the letter pad. I don't actually know what that's called, but, you know, have dodge on B, parry on X, and attack on Y. Anyway, all wins here. Onto my feelings about the game overall. The pros. The game has a lot of fun with itself through characters, environments, and references. The great thing about a lot of the references is they seem like they'd be fun even without getting the reference. They are just made more so by getting it. The references I picked up on weren't anything super niche either, though there may be some more that I didn't get. I'm not always up to date on my pop culture, not so pop culture knowledge. The music in the game is mostly amazing. The only critique I would have here is that some of it can end up feeling like it's noticeably repetitive. Not in a way where background music just sort of exists and happens to be repetitive, but in a way where you are aware of the music, its repetition, and it begins to grate on you. This is only really noticeable during the downtime between some of the areas, and I mostly noticed it during the tutorial area of the game. There are a lot of fun ways to interact with the environment in combat. It starts out fairly simple with kicking crates and throwing jugs, but eventually you make your way up to bombs, lanterns, chicken, wine, cannons, and more to take down enemies in combat. While not quite Sleeping Dogs level of environmental murder, it's up there as one of my favorites. I thought I was going to do a good job of exploring. Turns out, there are a lot of secret areas I'm missing in these levels. This adds an incentive to go back to explore and replay levels you've already completed. I like that the game tells you what you've missed in each of those levels as well, so you can go back, keep an eye out for those things. This may add some replayability to the game, though I would still have concerns with enemy diversity depending on the length of the game and how quick you can advance through some of the more simple areas. Enemy diversity feels good overall, but can stagnate at parts of the game. There were definitely a few times where I was like, really, is this all we're going to get? Or times where after introducing one enemy type, that enemy is removed for quite some time, lowering the cast of characters you're fighting against. Airborne movement, it's different than most games. Usually you have more control over which direction you'll go, either once in air or as you release. This game seems to take a lot of that control away, and instead where you land is mostly decided off of where you started, with minimal control over your direction after the fact. This definitely isn't a bad thing, but may take some adjusting for people not used to it. I know I did. The cons. Moving around and positioning around terrain is awkward. For a game with a lot of emphasis on using the terrain, repositioning can be quite a hassle. Red attacks, the ones you have to dodge, seem like they lock onto you. By this I mean the enemy will dash quite some distance even if you run well outside their normal attack range. This can feel frustrating and unintuitive at times. There is a delay on panache moves as well, it can feel clunky. The range of them also feels off relative to the standard attack range of your character. There are also a few of the platforming areas where the controls and level design feel like they fight ever so slightly against you. While there are only 1 or 2 moments of note for me after having finished the game, those moments have still stuck with me. To end this, the game is a sheer pleasure to play, and I feel I can highly recommend this for those that are okay with a shorter game, with the story clocking in at only around 3 to 5 hours long. However, with that shorter length, what you get is a constantly engaging game with very little downtime. The game never feels like it's overstaying its welcome. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.